Well, good night, everybody. It is 8:55. The stream is supposed to begin at 8:55. So here I am, Atlantic Standard Time. I'm here to talk to you guys about the topic that you see right in front of you. Facts about the DCEU and the future with Blue Beetle and DC Studios. All right. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're live right now. And you should be seeing me right now. Now, if you're not seeing me, then that's a problem. You should be seeing me right now. We're a minute and so on into the stream. So this is good. This is good. Okay. All right. Good. So we're going to be talking about facts concerning the DCEU and the future, not only of Blue Beetle, but the future of the DCEU or the DCEU and DC Studios. All right. I am Christ, I am disciple, as you can see in the bottom part of the screen there. I'm going to put up I'm going to tell you how this thing is going to go. So we start off first with scripture. God always comes first. Then we'll talk some facts about the Snyderverse versus the rest of the DCEU. And then we'll talk about the future concerning Blue Beetle specifically. Then we'll talk about the future concerning Aquaman. And then we'll talk about the future of DC Studios. Hold a second here. Okay. No, I'm sorry. That's why that's okay. The future of DC Studios. Okay. So that's the way how this setup or program is going to go. Let me just say that in the chat section of this stream, I have two things here so that you guys can see. First one is if you want to support my channel, there's my PayPal, so you can donate to it. The second thing is if you want to be a guest on this stream right now, then all you have to do is hit that link right there. I'll see you and I'll cue you in as a guest on the stream. Of course, you can also just chat in the chat section if you so wish. So let's get on with it. First thing we're going to do, scripture. The scripture today is just one text or one verse, and it comes from the book of Proverbs. It's Proverbs 25, verse 2, and it's really short, but it's so compact and so high in nutrients here. It says, "It is God's privilege to conceal things, but it is the king's privilege to discover them." Let me say it again. It is God's privilege to conceal things, but it is the king's privilege to discover them. All right. What does that mean? Well, in short, what we're saying is, as a kingdom of priests and kings, if you're a Christian, what is in the dark will come to light. The truth always comes out. God in his wisdom understands that without humility, we cannot truly see what the world is. In order to see what the world is, you have to observe. You have to watch. You have to listen. Spiritually speaking, it's the same thing. To see spiritual things, you have to watch. Your spiritual eye has to be open. Your spiritual ears have to be open. Your spiritual mouth has to be speaking the appropriate things. And so basically, what I'm saying is that it's not that God conceals things, but it's that because we are so busy carrying on our particular lives, our particular trajectory, we do not hear God. He speaks in nature. He speaks in situations. He speaks in the dailies of life. But if you're not tuned in to hear him, you won't hear anything. And it's a very similar thing happening right now with the DCEU. So let's get to it. Concealed things. You know, what I like about Zack Snyder is he has layers. And God's the same way. He has layers. One sentence, one phrase, one thing that is said has many different layers to it. And that is what makes life interesting. So that what seems concealed is just simply something that has not been revealed yet, something that hasn't been discovered yet. Keeping that in mind, I'm about to show you some facts about the DCEU that is going to give you some, it's going to reveal some stuff to you. So let's begin. I have my phone here with me. I'm going to show you something. I already showed people on Twitter and I asked them a question, but I'm going to show you now because it's something that I'm sure a lot of you have noticed. But as the DCU has moved along, you'll now notice it. All right. So here it is. Okay. Right. Good. Now, in front of you, what you're going to be seeing is 3 movies here. Right. 3 movies here. I need to use my left hand. Okay. So we should bring it this way. Okay. Now, the movie on at the top is Man of Steel. The movie below it is Batman v Superman. And the movie below it is the Suicide Squad. Studio Squad, but whatever. Now, what's interesting about these movies is Man of Steel, if you can see it, I'll try to get you to see it here. For some reason, the stuff's kind of blurry. Quite blurry. Well, if you can't see the numbers here, no biggie. But Man of Steel, for some reason the camera's not picking this up. Okay. Anyway, Man of Steel earned $668 million. Right? I was really trying to use the phone so you guys could see this, but for some reason, the angle at which I am at, for some reason, is poor. So, for some reason, I don't know if you can see this. Everything's so blurry. I don't know why that's so. But anyway, Man of Steel earned $668 million. The sequel to Man of Steel was Batman v Superman. The sequel to Man of Steel was Batman v Superman. And that earned a whooping $873.6 million. I don't know if you can see that. There's the box office right there, but I don't know if you can see it. It's blurry. This is from my take on it. I don't know. Now, coming off of that was a spin-off. The movie wasn't completely solo movie by itself because it's a spin-off. And the reason it's called a spin-off, even though this is part, the studio did this, they connected the movie somewhat to Batman v Superman. And it spoke about Superman dying. And they actually showed a scene from Batman v Superman, actually, when that happened. So anyway, this is why I said it's a spin-off. Oh, wow. Man, I'm having all kinds of problems right now. Okay, there you go. All right. So anyway, below that made a whooping $747 million. Okay, $747 million. Wonder Woman, 2017, This movie here. Wonder Woman 2017. It grossed $822.8 million. Okay. But its sequel, Wonder Woman 84, wasting my time. I'm just going to read it off for you guys. Its box office was 169.6 million. It was a tremendous drop from 822 million. Tremendous drop. Only 169.6 million. That's more than $600 million lower. Significant drop. Shazam. Shazam grossed $367.7 million. But its sequel, Fury of the Gods, it raked in 134 million, a drop of over $200 million. The Suicide Squad, we already said, raked in a whooping $747 million. A spinoff from that was Birds of Prey, because Harley Quinn from that movie was in Birds of Prey. It raked in $205.3 million, and it didn't even break even. Flopped. It was a whooping over $500 million drop. The sequel, or the follow-up movie to the Suicide Squad was The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. And that grossed in 168.7 million, even lower than Birds of Prey. Each of these movies was directed by a different director. So the first Suicide Squad movie was directed by David Ayer. Kathy Yang directed Birds of Prey, and James Gunn directed The Suicide Squad. But in the case of The Suicide Squad, which was a sequel to The Suicide Squad, it raked in over $500 million, $580-something million less than the original movie. So the sequel did much worse than the movie. So the only sequel in the DCEU that actually raked in more money, grossed in more money than its original first movie was Batman v Superman. And its spin-off also grossed in a tremendous amount of profit. Tremendous amount of profit. Okay? That's the first fact about the DCEU. The sequel to the Snyderverse movies, whether it was Wonder Woman, whether it was Man of Steel, whether it was Suicide Squad, only one sequel raked in more money than the original movie. Only one sequel made profit. All the rest did not make profit. They lost. Made losses. And then outside of the Snyderverse, Shazam, which made a profit initially, and its sequel didn't do well at all. And we can only, looking at the pattern, believe that Aquaman, its sequel, wouldn't do well either. Now the question is, knowing these facts, What is causing this to happen? Okay, because we're presenting facts. There's more facts. We'll come with them in a minute. But what is causing this to happen? The common denominator in all of these movies is the tonal shift that happened with them. David Ayer's movie, even though it was Studio Squad, James Gunn's movie was a tonal shift from the look to even the way how the characters were played. Similarly with Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman movie, which had Zack Snyder and stunt team there, Dana Carroll, the second unit was sent there to do the Wonder Woman. None of that was present in Wonder Woman 84. And the tone and the way how the movie was done, I was almost diametrically opposed. Now, Shazam is the only movie that was consistent, but even then, the sequel to it, I believe because of Zachary Levi's bad will among fans, ended up having it, not have a good showing. Okay. Now we have Aquaman that's going to be coming up at the end of this year. Before I go into the future of the DCEU or DCU concerning Blue Beetle and Aquaman, let's go to another fact. And this is just a fact. I'm not going to show you this. I might show you the fact. I might show you the fact if I can find it. This fact is just a fact. The Snyderverse, part of the DCEU, has earned way more money than any other time in the DCEU. Not only that, but DC period, the Snyderverse has been the most lucrative time other than Christopher Nolan's time with Batman. It is the most lucrative time in DC's history. So that's another fact. And I can actually show you, if I go on Twitter right now, that fact. There's another fact about the Snyderverse concerning the DCEU. That I want to share with each and every one of you at this time. That is that the DCEU in the Snyderverse time earned more money than the early phases of the MCU. We're talking about in the times of Iron Man, in the times of Captain America, in the times of the Hulk, in the early times of the MCU, phase 1 of the MCU, the entire phase of the MCU, which had 10 films, the DCEU, which only had 6 films, grossed more than the MCU phase 1. But yet there's another fact. About the DCEU. The DCEU took their first loss with a film called Justice League 2017. That was the first time, economically speaking, that the DCEU suffered a loss. And on Twitter here, Brian Curran, actually, what's his name? I'm going to find him in a minute. Brad Curran actually speaks in an article about this. Okay. Brad Curran. There it is right there. He says, isn't it crazy how avoidable all of this was? 6 years later, Justice League 2017 is still hurting DC movies. And you should check out that article. Because the fact is, the first loss in the DCEU was as a result of complete and utter studio meddling with the vision of the director in Justice League 2017. Such that the fans themselves were appalled at the movie that they got based on the advertising they saw. It's a fact. Now, having seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, we realize how vastly different the theatrical cut of the movie was from the director's vision. And as Brad Curran said, it's hurting the DCU to this day. It's not BVS. After BVS, lots of movies were doing well. It's when the studio under Jeff Johns and John Byrne, executives with DC Studios at the time, called DC Films, having called the DCEU the DCU, just like what James Gunn did, meddled completely into Zack Snyder's vision, redoing and reshooting most of the movie. These are facts. I have given you 3 facts about the DCEU. 3 facts about the Snyderverse being superior to the DCEU. 3 facts about how Zack Snyder and his movies have grossed money. Here is fact number 4. Greg Silverman, former president of production for Warner Brothers, said that Zack Snyder was very lucrative for the studio. The exceptions were Sucker Punch, which cost them some money, and The Owls of Ga'Hoole. Other than that, he was lucrative throughout making his movies. That includes Watchmen. So, currently, when we look at the DCEU or the DCU, we see that it is not lucrative. It is not making the studio money. It is costing the studio. Now, I've given you 5 facts. I can give you 2 more, 7, but I'll back off here because time is against me. And as I said before, Proverbs 25:2 says, it is God's privilege to conceal things and the king's privilege to discover it. Let's keep moving. What is the future concerning Blue Beetle? Well, Zack Snyder came out and he said he's going to go with his children and see it. David Ayer has been pushing it. The director for Blue Beetle in Spanish has been talking about how he loves Zack Snyder's Man of Steel and how, he's very inspired by it in Man of Steel somewhere inside of Blue Beetle. We have spoken about how the Flash sort of creates an atmosphere where the multiverse is there. So therefore, you can have the Snyderverse, you can have the Donnerverse with Christopher Reeve, you can have the Tim Burton verse. We saw good footage of uh, Superman fighting Brainiac. Brainiac's a spider. We saw Supergirl, etc., etc., etc. George Reeves. But here's the question that confronts us. Blue Beetle. How or how not will this movie be successful? The thing about this movie is, regardless of whether you say representation, you want to tick some squares, whatever, the movie has to have something to make you want to go see it. Unfortunately, Blue Beetle is a movie that reminds me of a Marvel movie, and I'm not really interested in Marvel movies. And then I always remember what George Lopez said in the movie, Batman's a fascist. And that is so offensive, even if it may be true, that I'm still highly suspect that Blue Beetle will make money. It's an uphill climb. There's nothing in Blue Beetle that really screams, we need to go see that movie. Something interesting, something to get us to want to get off our seats or couch or place where we are, put out our hard-earned money to see this movie. That's the problem. The DC movies can benefit from the success of Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has been successful, the pictures that is, has been successful in putting out movies that has been putting out once they're not DC. DC Studios is under James Gunn and Peter Safran. This is a Peter Safran movie. Peter Safran produced this movie for Blue Beetle. I personally don't have anything against the director of Blue Beetle, just as I have personally nothing against David Sandberg for Shazam. The problem that DC is dealing with is the series of flops before this movie have really set the tone for people to be disengaged in DC. Blue Beetle is not a mainstream character. They have a Blue Beetle battalion or some kind of craziness like that going on. It's not a mainstream character, one. Two, what is going against it is the series of flops that came before it. It has to overcome all those flops. I have tried to explain to people, and even I've suggested to Warner Brothers Pictures, because I couldn't speak to DC because I blocked James Gunn. And in addition to that, I just really don't want anything to do with that guy. So I've spoken to Abdi and DeLuca. I keep on sending messages to them via Warner Brothers Pictures, suggesting to them that they release Snyder Cut into theaters and into IMAX. And that would have done something for Blue Beetle, because it would have gotten people excited for DC again. The idea is to get excitement, people to be excited to see a movie. And what happened, I will give you my personal experience. It didn't really help Wonder Woman's box office, but nonetheless. When I found out that the Snyder Cut was coming out, I got excited. And I said, you know what, heck with it. I'm going to go see Wonder Woman, support that movie. But I went out and I saw it. I didn't expect it to be that bad. But I went out and I tried to support. Okay, I went to the theater. I went with Damian Anton Vincent. I bought tickets and we ate popcorn and stuff and we watched the movie. Damian regretted watching the movie. Me, I had a good time laughing at it. But the point is, I went and I saw the movie. Now, that's me. I don't know for the other DC fans if they would do something like that. But my point is, in order for these movies to do well, You should have laid the foundation, which you didn't do. And now at this last minute, you're trying to cram in, Gal Gadot. You're trying to cram in Ben Affleck. Then you're saying, no, we don't want them anymore. So you're pulling them out. You're double-minded, Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers Pictures, DC is double-minded. I know that Abdi and DeLuca, you're no longer in charge of DC. You were temporarily in charge. James Gunn is in charge of DC. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's destroying the brand. And Abdi and DeLuca, he's got to go. That's the truth. Blue Beetle's in a conundrum. It's not been seen. You weren't advertising it. Now you're trying to flood the gates and you're trying to advertise and you're trying to get some hype for it, but it's too late. The time is too late. Blue Beetle comes out before the end of this month. It comes out in a couple of days' time. You don't have time. You've run out of time. I see Warner Bros. Promoting Barbie and promoting the Meg 2, Megalodon. Blue Beetle has gotten very little press, and so it's sad because maybe this movie's better than The Flash. Maybe it's a better movie than a couple other DC, but you would never know because this movie has not gotten the push it needs. And because not everybody's behind it, and then because the history of DC with Warner Bros. Right now, it has to overcome so much just to break even. Just to break even. It's coming off of 6 flops. 6 flops. It's a lot to overcome. And so, unfortunately, I do not think that Blue Beetle will break even in the cinemas. It's going to be a casualty. But the good news is it would have expanded the universe. And you can have raw materials to continue the universe forward. Which leads me into Aquaman. First of all, James Wan had a critical issue and he was critically ill for a minute. That he was put under tremendous stress. And I really feel for the creatives. The executives are making it hard for the creatives. James Wan really is having a hard time right now with the studio, where he shouldn't. He should have just made his movie how he wanted to make it, and that would have been it. And now it looks like Aquaman 2 is doomed also to failure, which is sad. Okay. What we are seeing is a pattern. When executives take over where creatives are supposed to be, when executives don't stay in their lanes, and then you have one set of executives from one regime saying one thing, the next set of executives from another regime saying another thing. This is what happens. What is the future of DC Studios? DC Studios is destined to fail. It's destined to crumble and be destroyed. It was called DC Films with Jeff Johns and John Berg. Now it's DC Studios with James Gunn and Peter Safran. Before that, it was Walter Hamada. And these heads of DC Studios could not do anything for the brand except make their films flop at the box office. The reason you have DC Studios as an infrastructural part of, where one set of people are in charge of everything is not good. Yes, they're answerable to Abdi and DeLuca, or may go over their heads and to Zaslav, but it's still not good. As Damian Anton Vincent so correctly said, they really should have just kept it Warner Brother Pictures. They shouldn't probably have had a subsection of DC Studios. However, There's a DC Studios. So Warner Bros. Will have a conundrum for them. They may have to cut short James Gunn and Peter Safran's leadership at DC Studios, or they may want to make DC Studios into something else. But ultimately, in the end, because people are so selfish, they don't know how to work with other people. It's destined to fail. Destined to fail. It's you have to be inclusive. You have to be able to include the Snyderverse. You have to. You know, like I said before, it's not a problem having comical movies, but to try to separate yourself from the Snyderverse and say you're going to bring it to an end and you're going to end the DCEU, that makes no sense. Rebooting doesn't make any sense. The studio has tried to reboot now 4 times, and it's every single time it's failed. They tried to reboot something that did not need rebooting to start with. But now that we are in the situation where they're talking about the end of the DCEU and the beginning of the DCU, and James Gunn is talking this nonsense, it's rubbish. You need your Trinity all the time. You have to carry that over. If you want to pass the torch from one Trinity to the next, you can do that. But first, you have to finish off what the first Trinity was doing, gather that momentum. I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be this, but you lead everything to Final Crisis. So you have the Justice League 2 movie, you have the Justice League 3 movie, you have all those filler movies in between. You could start your new universe, but I would suggest you wait. It's just common sense. And then after that, instead of having the Flashpoint movie, you lead to Final Crisis. And then from there, now you start anew. Because Final Crisis will reset everything. So, because you need a reset, right? And then if you have whoever it is, they were talking J.J. Abrams once upon a time. They were talking, now they're talking James Gunn, whoever. You go down the road with this, you finish it off, but you have all these, a massive amount of characters, and you do the next generation. Listen, people, this is what the DCU has right now. It has the JLA. It has the Suicide Squad. It has the Justice League. It has the Birds of Prey. It has this. It has the Black Adam, right? It has Shazam family, the Marvel family. All right. It has the certain gods. It has it has all the villainous characters from Wonder Woman's arc. So you have so much. You have Darkseid, you have the Furies, you know, just a lot of stuff you have. If you have all of this already, why are you now? Blue Beetle was always earmarked to be done with Booster Gold down the road. So that's why, again, Zack Snyder's kind of like, yeah, let's see the Blue Beetle movie unfold, because the more stuff that comes out. Now, if Blue Beetle flops, you know, it's not good. But here's the thing. Do remember in Marvel, Captain America flopped. And then the Russo brothers came in and did the Winter Soldier. So I'm not saying that these flops can't work, but you have to keep the momentum going. You're not looking to reboot no universe yet. It can't be rebooted. Doesn't make any sense. You're just trying to reset again. Every time you reset, you're actually hurting the universe. They reset it. The first time it was reset, facts, was with Justice League 2017. It their first flop because they tried to reset. When that movie should have made $1 billion easy, which they still have the opportunity of having that $1 billion in spite of everything with Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now with the Flash, they kind of say, well, this is not necessarily canon. It depends on what verse in the multiverse we're talking about. So that helps the situation again. You have ways out of your problem, but you have to include everyone. It's include everyone. So these are facts that just support Oh, it gives even more reason why Warner Brothers Pictures, Warner Brothers Discovery need to restore the Snyder. If they're not going to do that, then you may just need to sell off your DC brand to someone who can do it. Because to go back to just Batman movies and to spend another 7, 8, 9, 10 years trying to build back another universe is a step tremendously backward. And this opportunity won't come again. So you have to take it while you have it. And make interesting stories. Zack Snyder's not the only guy who can make interesting stories, but you have to trust your directors to make interesting stories. And if you would allow Zack Snyder some more say in your universe, instead of you trying to push, let the creatives do their thing. And if James Gunn would get out of his goddamn ego and work with David Ayer and Zack Snyder, so he doesn't get fired, so that everybody's happy. Peter Safran, James Gunn, Zack Snyder, David Ayer, everybody can be happy. And the fans can all be happy. Because if you can get that proper comedy, but I know it's not possible. I know it's not feasible. I know I live in the real world. I know that's not going to happen. So what's going to happen is more like this. Blue Beetle's going to flop. Aquaman's going to flop. James Gunn will have 5 movies under him that flopped. He's going to try and press towards the mark with his TV stuff and so on, because he's not going to be doing movies until 2025, if they allow him. DC's not going to produce nothing theatrically for the fans. Then in 2025, he's going to try to pull something out of his ass for Superman. And it's going to flop. Is what it is. I'll catch you guys later. I am Christ, I am disciple. You guys have a good one. God's blessing. Godspeed. Peace.